Captain Kira Blackwood stared at her ship's financial records for the 100th time, hoping the numbers would magically rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. They didn't. The Stellar Horizon's maintenance costs were bleeding her dry, and the recent economic sanctions in the Orion Arm weren't helping. "Hey Cap, we've got another collection notice from the Centauri Banking Consortium," her first officer Zach announced as he floated through the zero-G corridor of their merchant vessel. "They're threatening to impound the ship at our next port." "Fantastic, because that's exactly what I needed to hear right now." Kira ran her fingers through her short-cropped black hair, a habit she'd developed during their increasingly frequent financial crises. "How much oxygen do you think we could save if I just banged my head against this console until I passed out?" "About 3 minutes worth," Zach replied with a smirk. "But then we'd have to waste medical supplies patching you up, so we'd actually end up at a loss." "Your dedication to mathematical accuracy is both admirable and incredibly annoying." Kira pushed away from her station, letting momentum carry her toward the ship's small viewport. The endless expanse of stars usually calmed her nerves, but today they just reminded her of all the creditors waiting at every possible destination. Their ship's AI chirped to life. "Captain, incoming transmission from an unregistered vessel. They're requesting permission to dock." "Unregistered? That's never sketchy at all," Zach muttered. Kira sighed. "Put them through. At this point, I'd accept payment in used socklint if it helped clear our debts." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a Trikali trader. The alien's crystalline exoskeleton glinted in the light of whatever ship they were broadcasting from, faceted eyes reflecting multiple angles of their cargo hold. "Greetings, merchant vessel," the Trikali's translator processed their clicking speech into standard galactic. "I see you're running low on fuel and supplies. I have a proposition that could benefit us both." "I'm listening," Kira replied, trying to sound more confident than desperate. "But if this involves any illegal substances, we're not interested. We're broke, not stupid." The Trikali's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. "Nothing illegal. I simply find myself with an excess of specialized cargo that needs rapid transport. In exchange for accepting this cargo as payment, I can provide enough credits to refuel your vessel and make your next port call." Zach and Kira exchanged glances. It wasn't enough to clear their debts, but it would keep them flying for another few weeks. "What kind of specialized cargo are we talking about?" Kira asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. "A single passenger, one who requires discreet transportation." The Trikali's crystalline form shifted uncomfortably. "Consider her a temporary addition to your crew. Her services will more than compensate for the space she occupies." Kira's stomach dropped. "You're talking about a slave, aren't you?" "A contracted servant," the Trikali corrected smoothly. "Perfectly legal in this sector. The arrangement is temporary, and she comes with all necessary documentation." "We don't deal in sentient cargo," Kira snapped, reaching for the comm controls. The Trikali quickly added, "The payment includes immediate clearance of your docking fees at New Singapore Station, plus enough fuel to reach the core systems." Kira's hand froze above the controls. New Singapore Station was notorious for impounding ships that couldn't pay their fees, and that's exactly where they were headed. Without fuel and fee payment, they'd lose the Stellar Horizon for good. "Give us a moment to confer," she said, muting the transmission. Zach didn't waste a second. "Cap, we can't seriously be considering this. We take her on, get her to the core systems, and make sure she has a chance to contact whatever authorities she needs," Kira whispered. "It's better than leaving her with that crystal-faced scumbag. Or we get arrested for trafficking and spend the next decade in a penal colony." "Got a better idea? Because I'm pretty sure the Centauri Banking Consortium's hospitality is worse." Zach threw up his hands. "I hate it when you make terrible ideas sound almost reasonable." Kira unmuted the transmission. "We'll accept under one condition. We get to speak with her first." "Acceptable," the Trikali replied too quickly, preparing to dock. As the transmission ended, Kira slumped in her chair. Either we just did something incredibly noble or incredibly stupid. "Knowing our luck," Zach grinned, "probably both." The docking procedure went smoothly, suspiciously so, for an unregistered vessel. Kira stood at the airlock with Zach and their security officer Rex, a burly man whose muscles seemed to have muscles of their own. The Trikali trader didn't even board their ship, simply activated the transfer tube and sent their payment across. Well, that's not ominous at all, Rex muttered, adjusting his stunner. The airlock cycled, and all three humans found themselves staring. Their new passenger was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin the color of twilight, and hair that seemed to float like starlit clouds around her head. Her features were eerily human-like, except for the luminescent patterns that swirled beneath her skin like cosmic nebulae. Zack eloquently summarized. The alien wore what appeared to be simple grey coveralls, but the fabric moved like liquid mercury. She carried herself with a grace that seemed to ignore the ship's artificial gravity, each movement precise and deliberate. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Horizon," Kira started, trying to sound professional despite the absurdity of the situation. "I'm Captain Blackwood. Do you understand me?" The alien tilted her head, patterns beneath her skin pulsing slightly. When she spoke, it sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. The ship's universal translator crackled, struggled, then gave up with a sad beep. "Great," Rex sighed. "We got paid in interpretive dance and wind noises." The alien's eyes, solid silver with no visible pupils, narrowed at Rex. She reached for her collar, and everyone tensed. But instead of a weapon, she pulled out what looked like a twisted piece of metal, pressed it, and spoke again. "Your primitive translation software is incompatible with High Celestial," she said, her accent crisp and aristocratic. "This will have to suffice." Zack coughed. "Primitive?" "Indeed, much like your vessel, your equipment appears to be several generations behind current technological standards." She glanced around the cargo bay with what could only be described as polite disdain. "However, I suppose it will serve its purpose." Kira crossed her arms. "For a servant, you're awfully judgmental about your transportation." "A servant?" The alien's patterns flickered with what might have been amusement. "Is that what the crystal merchant told you?" "Look," Kira said, "whatever your story is, we're headed to the core systems. You'll have access to authorities there who can help if you're being trafficked." The alien waved a dismissive hand. "Your concern is noted but unnecessary. Where are my quarters? I require privacy for meditation." Rex leaned over to whisper in Kyra's ear. "Cap, I've seen a lot of slaves in my security days. They don't act like this." "No kidding," Kira muttered back. To their guest, she said, "We have a spare crew cabin. It's small, but—" "It will suffice," the alien interrupted, already walking toward the corridor, as if she knew the ship's layout. "Oh, and you may call me Xylith. Try not to mangle the pronunciation too severely." They watched her glide away, her movements making the ship's utilitarian corridors look like a royal procession route. "So," Zack drawled, "either that's the most entitled slave in Galaxy, or we just got played." "Played how?" Rex asked. "No idea, but I get the feeling we're about to find out." The ship's AI interrupted their speculation. "Captain, the Trikali vessel has already undocked and engaged FTL drives." "Of course they have." Kira pinched the bridge of her nose. "Anyone else feeling like we just became part of something way above our pay grade?" "Above our pay grade," Zack laughed. "Cap, we don't even get paid anymore." "Track our new guest on internal sensors," Kira ordered the AI. "I want to know if she does anything weird." "Define weird, Captain." "Weirder than a 7-foot purple alien who talks like she's at a royal court and treats our ship like a budget hotel." "Calculating baseline for weird based on provided parameters," the AI replied. And Kira could have sworn it sounded amused. They spent the next few hours taking turns watching Xylith on the monitors. She did nothing more suspicious than arrange the sparse furniture in her cabin into incomprehensible geometric patterns and sit in the center, her hair floating more dramatically than the artificial gravity should allow. "Maybe she's just a really fancy servant," Rex suggested during the 3rd hour of observation. "Like those butlers in old Earth videos who act more posh than their employers." "A butler who needs a personal translator more advanced than anything we've seen in Coalition space?" Kira shook her head. "No, we're missing something big here, and I have a feeling we're not going to like it when we figure out what it is." "At least she's not complaining about the food," Zack offered. "She hasn't eaten anything." "See? No complaints." Everything went sideways during ship's night cycle, because of course it did. The AI's alert jolted Kira awake with news that their guest was exceeding baseline weird parameters. "Report," Kira mumbled, trying to simultaneously put on her boots and check the security feed. "Guest Xylith appears to be reconfiguring her clothing," the AI responded, "and violating several known laws of physics in the process." The security feed showed Xylith's room transformed into something out of a quantum mechanics nightmare. Her mercury-like coveralls had apparently decided to stop pretending to be clothes and were now floating in complex patterns around her, revealing an underlayer of what looked like living circuitry that covered her from neck to toe. "Wake up Rex and Zack," Kira ordered, already moving, "but keep this quiet from the rest of the crew." By the time they reached Xylith's cabin, the door was locked and emitting a soft humming that made their teeth itch. "So," Zack whispered, "still think she's just a fancy butler?" "Not the time," Kira hissed back. "Rex, can you override the lock?" Rex pulled out his security bypass tool. The moment it touched the door panel, it melted. "That's new," he said, shaking liquefied metal off his hand. Inside the cabin, they heard Xylith speaking in her wind chime language, but now it was accompanied by holographic displays that leaked light under the door. "Ship," Kira addressed the AI. "What's she saying?" "Unable to translate. However, I am detecting multiple quantum encrypted transmissions being broadcast from her location. They appear to be bouncing off higher dimensional spaces that technically don't exist." "Of course they are." Kira took a deep breath. "Xylith, we're coming in. Please don't melt us." She pressed the emergency manual release. The door slid open to reveal what had once been a standard crew cabin and was now a command center that would make military admirals weep with envy. Holographic displays showed star charts Kira had never seen, fleet movements that definitely weren't in any public database, and what appeared to be a royal seal featuring a suspiciously familiar purple-skinned species. Xylith stood in the center of it all, her circuitry-covered form radiating enough power to make the air crackle. "Ah, Captain, I was just about to summon you." "Were you now?" Kira tried to sound calm while cataloguing everything that could get them arrested, executed, or worse. "Planning to explain why our budget housing isn't good enough for your highness?" Xylith's patterns pulsed with surprise. "You figured it out rather quickly." "Lucky guess, the royal seal kind of gives it away." Kira pointed to the largest hologram. "Plus, I've never met a servant who complained about primitive technology while carrying around stuff that breaks physics." "Technically, we're not breaking physics," Xylith corrected. "We're just operating on a better understanding of it." Rex raised his hand like a student in class. "Quick question. Are we all going to die?" "That depends," Xylith replied, "on how well you follow instructions in the next few hours. You see, I'm not just any royal. I'm the heir apparent to the Celestial Concordate, and I'm currently avoiding an arranged marriage that would start an interstellar war." Zack threw up his hands. "Great, we've kidnapped a space princess. This is fine. Everything is fine." "You didn't kidnap me," Xylith said. "I arranged to be here. That Trakali trader works for my security detail. We needed a ship so unremarkable that no one would think to look for me on it." "I feel like I should be offended," Kira muttered. Just then, the AI interrupted. "Captain, multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Their energy signatures match Celestial Concordate naval vessels. Holographic displays shifted to show 12 battlecruisers that made the stellar horizon look like a toy." "Those would be my would-be in-laws," Xylith said calmly. "They're rather upset about the broken engagement." "You don't say." Kira watched as more ships appeared. "How many angry relatives should we expect?" "Listen." "Oh, these aren't relatives. These are just the advanced scouts." Rex slumped against the wall. "I knew I should have taken that job on the garbage scow." "Captain," the AI reported, "we're being hailed by the flagship. They're demanding we surrender the stolen royal property and submit for immediate execution." "Stolen royal property?" Kira turned to Xylith. "Is that you, or did we actually steal something else I should know about?" "Technically, I stole myself," Xylith replied, "but I left a note, so it's fine." Zack started laughing, a slightly hysterical edge to it. "Oh yeah, a note makes it all better. Dear Space Kingdom, gone rogue to prevent galactic war, back never, XOXO, Princess Stardust." More ships dropped out of FTL, these ones bearing different insignias. "And those would be my actual relatives," Xylith noted. "They're here to prevent the marriage too, but their method involves considerably more firepower." Kira watched as the two fleets began taking up battle formations around her tiny merchant ship. "Let me guess, if either side shoots first, it's war?" "Precisely." Xylith's patterns swirled faster. "So, Captain, shall we negotiate our way out of this mess? I assure you the rewards for helping me will far exceed whatever that Trakali promised." "Do we have a choice?" There's always a choice. Xylith's smile was radiant, though I should mention that the wrong choice ends with this sector becoming a very pretty nebula. Right then, Kira straightened her uniform. Let's go prevent a war. But first, Zach, break out the good coffee. If I'm going to talk down two angry space fleets, I need caffeine. The coffee maker's broken. Perfect, this day just keeps getting better. The Stellar Horizons bridge, designed for a crew of 5, now hosted representatives from 3 galactic powers. Somehow, this made it feel even smaller than usual. Let me get this straight, Kira addressed the holographic projections of both fleet commanders. You're willing to start a war over a marriage contract? The contract ensures stability between our sectors, growled Admiral Vex of the Hegemony, his crystalline form similar to the Tracali but blood red. Your interference is an act of war. Interference, Kira laughed. We're a merchant vessel that can barely afford fuel. The only reason we accepted your runaway bride was to avoid bankruptcy. The Celestial Admiral, a being of pure energy contained in an elaborate environmental suit, flared bright enough to make their senses scream. You dare reduce a royal betrothal to such crude terms? Actually, Xylith interrupted from her makeshift throne, previously Zach's favorite chair, she does dare. That's why I chose this ship. Meanwhile, Rex was trying to keep track of all the new ships arriving in the system. Cap, we've got 3 more fleets incoming. One appears to be freelance marriage counselors. Peacekeepers, Xylith corrected, though their success rate is roughly the same as marriage counselors. Zach leaned over to Kira. Remember when our biggest problem was just crippling debt? Good times, Kira muttered before addressing the increasingly agitated admirals. Look, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we could... There is no misunderstanding, a new voice boomed as another hologram materialized. This one showed a being so bright that the bridge's filters had to dim the projection. I am High Celestial Monarch Xylaxis, and I demand to speak with my daughter. Father! Xylith's patterns shifted to something that looked suspiciously like teenage rebellion. I left a very detailed explanation. Your interpretive light dance was hardly an explanation, the monarch retorted. And hiring privateers to smuggle you through human space? Your grandmother would be proud, but that's not a compliment. The Hegemony Admiral bristled. This family dispute is irrelevant. The contract... Oh, shove the contract up your crystalline structure, Xylith snapped. Everyone knows you only want this marriage to get access to our quantum tunneling technology. While they want your mining rights, Kira added, pointing to the Celestials. A moment of silence followed. What? I read trade reports when I'm bored. Captain, the AI interrupted, the peacekeepers are requesting docking clearance. Also, the Galactic Press has arrived and is asking for exclusive rights to The Great Space Romeo and Juliet Story. Kira dropped her head into her hands. Deny them both, and would someone please explain how our broken-down ship became the center of galactic politics? Actually, Xylith said with a tone that made everyone nervous, your ship's reputation for being unremarkable is precisely why I chose it. No one would expect a royal heir to hide on a vessel known for its... She paused diplomatically. Economic challenges. Our poverty is not a tactical advantage, Kira protested. It is today, Xylith grinned. Father, the Hegemony's fleet violated 3 trade agreements just entering this sector. I have proof they've been planning to reverse engineer our technology the moment the marriage was complete. The monarch's glow intensified. Evidence? Downloaded from their own systems while they were busy threatening this charming little ship. Xylith's patterns swirled smugly. Captain Blackwood's crew has been unknowingly hosting a deep-cover intelligence operation. We've been what now? Rex squeaked. The Hegemony Admiral's crystalline form cracked slightly. These accusations are transmitted to all relevant authorities and media outlets, Xylith finished, along with the marriage contract's hidden clauses about technology transfer. I had quite a bit of time to work while pretending to meditate. Kira watched as the political situation rearranged itself faster than a quantum particle. The Hegemony fleet suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. The peacekeepers changed course to escort them out. The press ships circled like vultures. Well played, daughter, the monarch admitted, though your methods were unconventional. I learned from the best, Xylith replied. Remember how you met Mother? That's classified. The monarch's glow turned slightly pink. Captain Blackwood, it seems we owe you a debt of gratitude for your unwitting assistance. Kyra straightened. Happy to help prevent a war, your luminescence. Though next time, Maybe just send a memo. Zack nudged her. Cap, maybe don't sass the Space Emperor. But the monarch laughed, a sound like distant bells. I like this one, Xylith. Perhaps we should discuss trade routes through their sector. Kira's eyes widened. Trade routes? Indeed, Xylith said. After all, we need a believable cover for my future diplomatic missions. What better disguise than a humble merchant vessel? Did we just accidentally become royal smugglers? Rex whispered. Diplomatic couriers, Xylith corrected. With full royal funding, of course. Kira looked at her crew, then at the dispersing fleets, then at the stack of unpaid bills on her console. Your luminescence, I believe we have some details to discuss. Once the immediate crisis passed, the Stellar Horizons crew gathered in what they'd started calling the Royal Conference Room, formerly the mess hall. Xylith had transformed it with her quantum tech into something that looked like a cross between a war room and a luxury spa. So, Kira said, nursing a cup of suddenly much better coffee. Xylith had fixed the machine with a wave of her hand. Want to tell us what this was really all about? Xylith's patterns formed complex geometries that their AI was still trying to catalogue. Would you believe it was about love? No, everyone replied in unison. Good, because it wasn't. Xylith waved her hand, bringing up a holographic map of known space. It was about this. Zack squinted at the display. That's the quantum divide, biggest navigation hazard in 3 sectors. What about it? What if I told you it's not actually a natural phenomenon? Xylith's patterns shifted to something that looked almost conspiratorial. The divide is artificial, created by my ancestors to hide something the galaxy wasn't ready for. Rex raised his hand again. Is this the part where we learn something we'll have to be mind-wiped to forget? Please, Xylith scoffed. Mind-wiping is so last century. Besides, you're all already involved. She expanded the map, showing energy flows they'd never seen before. The hegemony discovered part of the truth. They thought a marriage alliance would give them access to our quantum tunneling technology. What they really wanted was access to what's behind the divide. Which is, Kira prompted, a shortcut. Xylith's smile was radiant. A network of artificial wormholes created before most species achieved spaceflight. With it, you could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. The Celestial Concordat are its caretakers, not its creators. We've been waiting for the younger races to advance enough to handle it responsibly. Zack whistled. And you think humanity's ready? Honestly, no, you're terrible. Xylith laughed at their expressions. But you're also surprising. Take this ship. By all logic, you should have failed months ago. Instead, you kept going, adapting, surviving. That's exactly what we need. Need for what? Kira asked, suspicion growing. My escape wasn't just about avoiding marriage, it was a test. Xylith's form seemed to expand slightly. We needed to prove the hegemony's intentions while simultaneously evaluating potential new allies. Your ship's reputation for barely legal but technically ethical solutions made you perfect. You used us as bait, Rex realized. I prefer unwitting diplomatic auxiliary personnel, Xylith corrected. And it worked perfectly. The hegemony revealed their true plans, humanity proved its adaptability, and I got out of a terrible marriage. Everyone wins. Except the hegemony, Zack pointed out. They'll recover, probably, eventually. Xylith waved dismissively. The important thing is what comes next. Kira leaned forward, which is, we need a cover operation for monitoring the younger race's development. Something inconspicuous, flexible, able to move between worlds without drawing attention. Xylith's patterns formed what looked suspiciously like a business plan. A struggling merchant vessel suddenly getting lucky with new trade routes wouldn't raise any alarms. Let me get this straight, Kira said slowly. You want to use my ship, which until yesterday couldn't afford basic repairs, as a front for a massive galactic monitoring operation? Precisely, though I should mention it's not just monitoring. Sometimes we need to nudge things along. Xylith's expression turned serious. The galaxy's changing, Captain. The old powers are fading, new ones are rising, and someone needs to manage the transition. My little marriage drama proved that the traditional approaches aren't working anymore. So you're suggesting what? We become your undercover diplomats? More like independent contractors with extremely good connections. Xylith projected a series of numbers that made everyone's eyes widen. The Celestial Concordat would, of course, ensure your operation remains properly funded. Rex whispered to Zack, is this a promotion or a hostage situation? At these rates, who cares? Kira raised her hand for silence. This is all very interesting, but why us, really? Because you're nobody, Xylith said bluntly. No offense, but that's your greatest asset. The big powers ignore you, the small ones don't fear you, and nobody expects a third-rate merchant ship to be carrying a royal operative. Still feeling offended, Rex muttered. Don't be. It's perfect camouflage. Xylith's patterns formed complex equations. Besides, you've already proven you can handle unexpected situations without causing an interstellar incident. That's rarer than you might think. Kira looked at her crew. Thoughts? We get paid? Zack asked. Very well, Xylith confirmed. We get to keep the quantum coffee maker, Rex added. I'll throw in a full suite of household upgrades. We don't have to marry anyone, Zack checked. Not unless you want to start another diplomatic crisis. Kira held up her hand. One last question. What happens if we say no? Then you get a generous retirement package and quantum-wiped memories of the last 24 hours. Xylith's patterns turned gentle. We're not monsters, Captain, but I don't think you'll say no. You're all far too curious about what's really out there. The crew exchanged looks. They'd started this week worried about bankruptcy. Now they were being offered a chance to be part of something much bigger. I can't believe I'm saying this, Kira sighed, but I think we're about to become royal spies. Diplomatic auxiliaries, Xylith corrected cheerfully. Now, shall we discuss your first mission? There's this lovely little civil war brewing in the Carina sector. 3 months after the Great Space Romeo and Juliet incident, the press still wouldn't let that name die. The stellar horizon looked exactly the same on the outside. Inside was a different story. I still can't believe this is the same ship, Rex said, lounging in the gravity-adjustable chairs that Xylith had installed in the crew lounge. Remember when we had to bang on the life support system with a wrench to make it work? Now it produces its own oxygen from quantum fluctuations, Zack replied, sipping something that looked like coffee but tasted like liquid starlight, though I'm still not sure that's actually safe. Says the man drinking quantum coffee. Kira walked in, reviewing their latest trade manifesto, the cover story for their actual mission of preventing a corporate war in the Perseus arm. The hegemony finally dropped all charges against us. Apparently being publicly humiliated and losing half their trade contracts made them more reasonable. The quantum evidence dump probably helped, Xylith added, materializing in her favorite spot. She'd stopped pretending to walk places weeks ago. Father sends his regards, by the way. The council is quite pleased with our progress. You mean they're pleased that we've managed not to start any new wars while stopping 3 old ones? Kyra asked. Exactly. Though that situation with the Pleiades Trading Consortium was a bit close. Rex grinned. Hey, how are we supposed to know that burping in their general direction was a marriage proposal? That's why we have cultural briefings now, Kira reminded him. She still couldn't believe how quickly their lives had changed. The Stellar Horizon's debt had vanished overnight. Apparently, the Celestial Concordat owned most of the banks anyway, and their ship's reputation had gone from probably smugglers to surprisingly well-connected traders. Their new trade routes, carefully designed to look just successful enough without drawing attention, took them through strategic sectors where they could monitor developing situations. Sometimes they played dumb merchants, sometimes clever negotiators, but always stayed just under the radar. Oh, speaking of trade, Xylith's patterns formed what they'd learned was her equivalent of a smirk. The hegemony's former admiral has requested a meeting. Apparently he's interested in discussing alternative career options. You mean he wants to defect? Zack translated. Defection is such an ugly word. He's merely considering a transition into the private sector. Xylith's patterns swirled with amusement. Through a perfectly legitimate merchant operation with surprisingly good connections. Kira laughed. Are we collecting disbanded military officers now? Only the useful ones, Xylith projected the latest galactic news. Besides, his knowledge of hegemony operations could help us prevent any future misunderstandings. Is that what we're calling attempted forced marriages now? The ship's AI interrupted their banter. Captain, incoming transmission from the Carina Defense Force. They're requesting our assistance with a trade dispute. Translation, someone's about to do something stupid and they want neutral witnesses, Rex said. Well then, Kira straightened her now much nicer uniform. Let's go be surprisingly competent merchants who just happen to be in the right place at the right time. With the right technology, connections and classified intelligence, Zack added. Details, Kira waved her hand in a gesture she'd picked up from Xylith. Set course for the Carina sector. And someone please make sure our quantum coffee maker isn't going to accidentally create a parallel universe this time. That was one time, Xylith protested. As they prepared for their next mission, Kira couldn't help but marvel at how things had turned out. They'd gone from accepting suspicious payment from a shady trader to becoming undercover operatives for one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Their ship, once held together by prayers and patch jobs, now housed technology that most species couldn't even detect, let alone understand. And somehow, they'd managed to prevent a war, expose a conspiracy, and establish themselves as legitimate power brokers in the galactic community, all while maintaining their cover as a slightly more successful than average merchant vessel. You know, Kira said, as they prepared to jump to FTL, when I became a merchant captain, I thought the worst thing I'd have to deal with was pirates. Disappointed, Xylith asked. Are you kidding? This is way better. Though next time you decide to use us as bait for a galactic conspiracy, maybe give us a heads up. Now, where would be the fun in that? The Stellar Horizon jumped to FTL, its quantum-enhanced engines purring like a satisfied cat. To anyone watching, it looked like just another merchant ship going about its business. Perfect camouflage for a crew that had accidentally stumbled into the greatest undercover operation in human history. And somewhere in the quantum divide, ancient machinery hummed a little stronger, preparing for the day when the galaxy would be ready for what came next. But that, as Xylith would say, was a crisis for another day. For now, they had a trade dispute to resolve, a defector to collect, and most importantly, a quantum coffee maker to prevent from achieving consciousness. Just another day in the life of the galaxy's most improbable diplomatic auxiliary vessel.